On behalf of the board and the staff of the Marin Interfaith Council, we welcome you to the 25th Annual Prayer Breakfast. My name is Scott Quinn, Executive Director of the Marin Interfaith Council. It's my joy to welcome each of you, whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you come from, whatever you believe. We welcome you and are so glad you're here this morning as we celebrate the National Day of Prayer. While in some places this is a purely Christian observance, we're happy to acknowledge people of every faith and those of no prescribed faith, as together we create a welcoming place of belonging for a diversity of people and perspectives. And as we gather, we gratefully acknowledge that this breakfast is being held on the unceded territory and ancestral homelands of the coastal Miwok people, to whom we pay our respect to elders both past and present. So as we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, most of you probably are addicted to this beloved friend. And if you are, we invite you to give your beloved friend a Sabbath rest. It deserves a break for a couple hours, so just let it go into a gentle nap, if you will. Also, right outside these doors and to your left are the bathrooms. We also have a few acknowledgements to make, and rather than clap for each one, I just invite you to hold your applause and simply hold gratitude in your own heart for those mentioned. First of all, we're particularly grateful and thankful for our ongoing partnership with our host, Congregation Kol Shofar. This is the 12th time that our Interfaith Breakfast has been hosted in this sacred, beautiful location, and we're also grateful to Kol Shofar for catering today's breakfast. A biggie thank you to all of you, to all of our supporters, particularly those of you who bought tables today, and also to the Marin Community Foundation. To our friends from the Street Chaplaincy, to Nick Morris, Chaplain Charlotte, and everyone with the Street Chaplaincy, part of our MIC community. And to my coworkers, Reverend Lynn Oldham Robinette, and especially Esmeralda Flores, who's handled most of our logistics for today. Thank you to all of our volunteers who are helping today. And later today, we're going to acknowledge all of our board members, but I did want to acknowledge two in particular, Sister Joan Hanna from Dominican Sisters, if you would rise, and also Mark Noguchi. Where's Mark? There's Mark. Two of our board members. Who are completing their terms of service because of term limits. We're so grateful for their amazing, unwavering, loving, dedicated support and the light that they shine in our community. Thank you for being the Marin Interfaith Council. So, today we're blessed to have with us Macha Nightmare from the Covenant of the Goddess, who will begin our interfaith celebration by sharing with us why today is a sacred day.
Halanto, jolly lamalo, we were up long before the day, oh, to welcome in the summer, to welcome in the May, oh, for summer is a-comin' in, and winter's gone away, oh. Greetings on this merry May morn from your friends at the Covenant of the Goddess. Today is one of our primary holidays on the Wheel of the Year. We call it Beltane, and it has survived into these times as May Day. This is a time of fire and fertility that marks the beginning of the light summer half of the year. The sap rises in the trees, the orchards leaf and bud, nestlings chirp in the branches, ewes lamb, cows calve, and wildflowers blanket the hills and meadows. We honor and celebrate those who toil in factories, fields, and kitchens. It's thanks to their work that we can enjoy this bountiful breakfast. Our maypole connects earth and sky, and when we dance around it, winding multicolored ribbons, we reenact our interconnectedness with and interdependence upon all of life. May your troubles be less, may your blessings be more, and nothing but happiness come through your door. For each petal on the shamrock, this brings a wish your way. Good health, good luck, and happiness for today and every day. May you live as long as you want, but never want as long as you live. May your pockets be heavy and your heart be light. May good luck pursue you each morning and night. May all who've come here today in courtesy, comity, and camaraderie spread cheer and good deeds. In these challenging and fractious times, may our bright spirits strew goodwill among all we encounter, like the glory of the wildflowers who've awakened with the May. Blessed be.
Thank you, Macha. We gather today during a time of war and the suffering, fear, and grief that accompany it. We gather during a time of polarization, hate that targets vulnerable communities, threats to democracy. We gather in peace, enjoying shelter, companionship, and food, aware that many right here in our own community lack these gifts. And this is why we gather. We envision something different, a community of belonging, where diversity is celebrated as strength, a society where truth, peace, understanding, and compassion overcome greed, abuse, bias, and fear disguised as hate. A human species less bent on self-destruction and narrow self-interest and more enamored with the common good, especially for the most vulnerable, for those from historically marginalized and unrepresented communities, and for our non-human kin. And until we get there, until we get to that beloved community, we will continue to gather like this. So thank you for joining us today as we live into what is possible. In support of that vision, today we also build community around the table and get to know each other and our different perspectives. Some of you know each other well. Some of you are sitting with people you've never met before. Whatever the case, this is a time to listen and understand. You might want to have a group conversation at your table. You might prefer to talk one-on-one with the person next to you. It's your choice. And just to get you started, here's some table topic conversations. You don't have to use these, but they may spark something. What's your vision for what Marin County can become? Where do you find nourishment, hope, encouragement, or inspiration? How might we become more enamored with and support the common good, especially for the most vulnerable, persons from historically marginalized or underrepresented communities, and for our non-human kin? Again, you can start with these. They might spark something different. Have an open heart, have an open mind, have some fun. We'll come back in a few minutes for our program. Get yourself some more food and drink and have a wonderful conversation at your table. And next we have our board president, Nancy Roybal, also with the International Association of Sufism, who will offer a few words. Thank you, Nancy.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? No? Okay. How's that, better? Okay. Good morning and welcome to all esteemed members of our interfaith community. My heart is filled with gratitude to each and every one of you for being here this morning. As Scott said, I'm Nancy Roybal, the current president of the MIC Board of Directors. I'm also a representative member of the International Association of Sufism in Novato under the guidance of Dr. Nahid Anga and Dr. Ali Kanfar. I'm relatively new to the Marin Interfaith Council, having joined about 2 years ago. Not only do I get to work with and get to know the executive director, Scott, as well as his staff, Lynn and Esmeralda, but I also work with my fellow board members who are so supportive. Gloria, our vice president, Sid, our treasurer, Randy, our secretary, Mark, our immediate past president, Sister Joan, Rabbi Ilana, Sarah, Zachary, Jeff, Annie, and Fatai. Would you all, staff and board members, please stand for just a brief moment. Thank you. It's a joy to work with all of you. So all of us on the board, as well as all of us in this room, we all come from different places and believe in different things. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We all want love, kindness, and justice, right? Those things, in my opinion, don't belong to any one religion or any one person. They're all a part of being human. We do learn from each other's experiences and perspectives, and I think that's what makes all of us here in this room so strong. It is our differences and our willingness to listen, be heard, and love one another. I get to see in action the work of MIC, how they respectfully and how they collaborate with congregations, agencies, individuals, nonprofits, and all of you by engaging in interfaith dialogue, finding ways to connect, developing and supporting initiatives, and many acts of service. They do all of this with the intention of addressing issues for those in Marin County who may be facing hardship and uncertainty. MIC also does this with so much empathy, compassion, and with all of your help. So to me, it's evident that having a robust interfaith council in Marin provides many benefits to the community. As Rabbi Ilana says, MIC is a connector for the faith communities in celebration and in difficult times. I'd like to share in honor of this day a prayer by Helen Weaver. Almighty God, look upon your planet Earth divided. Help us know that we are all your children, that all nations belong to one great family, and that all of our religions lead to you. Multiply our prayers in every land until the whole earth becomes your congregation, united in your love. Sustain our vision of a peaceful future and give us strength to work unceasingly to make that vision real. Thank you. Before I turn it back over to Scott, who will get the morning going with our speakers, a gentle reminder that at your tables there are sign-up sheets for any new attendees who might like to receive newsletters and information about MIC, and also a QR code if anyone would like to make a donation. Thank you so much, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Founded in 1982, the Marin Interfaith Council is a respectful collaborative with a threefold mission: celebrate faith, advocate justice, build community. We seek to be a place of belonging and understanding where hearts and minds can change, connect, and collaborate so that all may experience radical inclusion and thrive. Some examples include our gatherings every first, second, and third Wednesday of the month, which includes our 2 monthly meditations and our program called Getting to Know Your Neighbor's Faith, Ask Me Anything, where each month you can bring to a religious leader all your questions about their faith tradition. We also have gatherings for religious leaders, an annual fall event highlighting visionary work in our county, and ongoing small groups, including 2 focused on addressing climate change. Our network of accompaniment congregations provides tangible support to immigrant families, refugees, and asylum seekers. And our justice work includes being part of the Marin Organizing Committee. We're also the fiscal sponsor for the Street Chaplaincy, which provides compassionate spiritual care to those experiencing homelessness. And these are just a few examples of MIC's mission to create a place of belonging. And by joining us today, all of you are MIC in action. So thank you for being the Marin Interfaith Council. As Nancy mentioned, the best way to get involved, if you're already on our newsletter list, to go ahead and sign up for that on the table. And, bing, up. Oh, come on, there we go. As of this morning, MIC has a new website. Woo! And thanks so much to everybody who worked on it, and particularly to my coworker Lynn and to our board member Sid for all his amazing work that made this possible, and Lynn's husband Ryan. So check it out. Still has a few little quirks to it that we're working on, but it works. So yay. All right. So together, we're going to make this a community, a world where everyone thrives and is fully welcome, a place of justice, equity, celebrating diversity and belonging. And in that spirit, we turn our attention now to our speakers. I invite you to open your hearts and minds to receive what is familiar and comforting, and to hold with gentle openness what is new or unfamiliar or that you might not agree with. That's why we're here, to listen to each other with deep respect. And if anything you hear leads to a tightness in your chest or stomach, that's normal. It's our human way of dealing with the unfamiliar. Simply notice it, be kind with yourself and each other, as we hold everything today with compassion and openness. So today we will hear from our different speakers, Reverend DeeAnn Weir Morency from Unity in Marin, Jiryu Rutschman-Byler, Green Gulch's abiding Abbot, Reverend Jess from Community Congregational Church in Tiburon, and Reverend Lauren Van Ham, who is co-founder of Project Adapt and is also with the United Religions Initiative, of which MIC is a cooperation circle. So I'm going to introduce each speaker, and I'll act as timekeeper, so there's no need for them or us to be anxious. So relax and enjoy these leaders from our community. So our first speaker, Reverend DeeAnn Weir Morency. Originally from New York City, she first fell in love with the San Francisco Bay Area at age 17. She split her time between both coasts until 2011, when she and her wife Chris, who is here with us today, put down roots in Oakland. A professional actor, fight choreographer, producer, and arts educator for over 20 years, Reverend DeeAnn brings creativity and enthusiasm to all that she does. And this is what she says. Zeal is the energy that drives us. It's our get up and go, our passion for life. Zeal is the energized enthusiasm that gets us out of bed humming with expectancy. I'm generally one of those energetic, enthusiastic, bouncy people who loves new ideas and forward momentum. I welcome new beginnings and feel most alive when I'm deeply committed, passionately engaged, and purposefully driven. Reverend DeeAnn first encountered Unity's teachings while serving as a spiritual leader at Unity of Berkeley, and then later as associate minister at Unity San Francisco. As an ordained interfaith minister and Agape licensed spiritual practitioner, she brings a unique variety of teachings to her leadership at Unity Marin. She became a licensed Unity teacher in 2016 and was ordained as a Unity minister in March of 2020. And she was appointed to the position of senior minister at Unity Marin in August of 2022. Please welcome Reverend DeeAnn.
Good morning, everyone. As one of those bouncy people, standing behind a podium just doesn't ever work well for me. It really is a joy to be here with all of you today. So again, I'm DeeAnn Weir Morency. My pronouns are she, they, and I am honored and blessed to be the spiritual leader, the senior minister at Unity in Marin. So I thought today I would start by giving you you got a little bit of a sense of my rather eclectic background, but I thought I'd give you a sense of my spiritual journey I was raised in New York City. My family was part of a conservative Orthodox Jewish community. Conservadox is what we call ourselves. And when I was 11 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a rabbi. And when I went to my rabbi and told him I wanted to be a rabbi, he told me that I couldn't be a rabbi. And that was the beginning of something, or the ending of something. They're both the same thing ultimately, right? So I didn't quite know how to hold that. It didn't make sense to me. At 11, it just didn't make sense. I was very confused. I was like, but. And at the same time, my sexual orientation, my sexual identity, everything was up in the air. And being a queer female in a conservative Orthodox community is as tenuous as wanting to be a rabbi. And so I knew that there was something more that I was seeking, and my life really became one of being a very, very deep seeker. And so I became a self-declared agnostic at the age of 13 when I finished my bat mitzvah. And my parents were incredibly supportive of the fact that I was looking for something. And then I found it in art, actually. I found it being an artist. There was something about being in that creative environment. There was something about being in that space with people who were in agreement about what it was that we were all trying to create. There was a freedom there. There was a sense of connection. And I did that for a really long time. And I had a moment at the end of a performance, as I was taking my bow, where I realized that what I felt in the rehearsal room and what I felt when I was performing on stage, that connection with the audience, that sense that we were all going on an adventure together, was something that I wanted to experience in every aspect of my life, not just in the rehearsal room or when I was performing. And as life has a way of doing, as I made that decision, my entire life fell apart. Everything fell apart. I had a theater company in New York City. My partner at the time, we did it together. She got it in the divorce. All of my community were my fellow actors, were my fellow performers. She got all of them in the divorce as well. And I was really in a very, very dark place. And I had been searching, even while art was sort of my God, if you want to call it that. I had been searching. I had practiced Sufism. I was part of Reclaiming with Starhawk for 3 years. I studied with Louisa Tish. I was trying to heal that place within myself where a God could say, you, because you're born in this particular physical container, cannot be the thing that you know you are meant to be. And there was a lot of healing that I was doing, but I was putting it together myself. I called it like the smorgasbord of spirituality. I was finding the pieces that worked and I was using them, but I felt very alone and I felt very isolated in my spiritual practice. So as the theater community left, I really felt alone and very broken by the relationship ending and everything being over. And that was when I first discovered New Thought. So I started in this denomination, which is New Thought, through Centers for Spiritual Living in New York City, and then at Agape down in Los Angeles. And it was a revelation for me, because I had been putting pieces together for myself, and there were gaps and there were holes and, there were all kinds of things happening, but it was working. And then when I discovered New Thought, I realized I was trying to create a wheel when somebody had already built a rocket ship. And there was so much alignment for me with what New Thought is. And I showed up. So remember, I was raised in a traditional Jewish community, so our prayers in Judaism, which I love and are beautiful, are by rote. We have prayers that we say again and again. They sort of build a groove within us. New Thought is all extemporaneous prayer. And it's not in Hebrew, it's in English. And it really terrified me. It terrified me to step into the prayer field in a way that was inviting me to be as authentic and as honest and as purely me as I could be. It was so hard. I still remember the first time I tried to pray aloud. I was literally shaking. And the reason why I was willing to walk through all of that was because I had sat down across from a prayer practitioner, spiritual practitioner from Agape, and poured out my brokenness to her. And it was such a dark night of the soul. There were days when I wasn't sure I was going to make it to the next day. That's how dark it was for me. And she sat down with me and listened to me pour it all out, all that pain just out there. And then she stepped into prayer with me. And Unity and New Thought has a very particular form of prayer called affirmative prayer. And it's a prayer that is not about petitioning, it's not about asking, it's not about calling upon something outside of ourselves. It is a prayer process that is anchored in the awareness of each of our divine identity. Each of us. So in Unity, I often say we're 100% human and we are 100% divine. And what the prayer process does is invite us to remember the divinity that we actually are. And because we are divine, we have capacities, we have abilities that we're able to access, that we're able to step into, that sometimes in our sense of brokenness just feel like on the other side of the Grand Canyon. And she sat there with me and reflected back to me the divinity that she saw that I was, that I gotta tell you was so far from my understanding of myself. We have an expression in Unity where we say there are no exceptions in God. I believed I was an exception, right? I believed I was the great exception. And she reflected back to me my wholeness, my capacity, my strength, my ability to be able to navigate everything that I was in the midst of. We don't dismiss or ignore the emotional experience that people are in. We hold that, and there is that which you are, which can never be hurt, harmed, or endangered. There is that which you are, which is strength, eternal. There is that which you are, which is wisdom, which knows exactly what it is that you are being invited to do, to be, to stand as right now. And for the first time in over a year, I felt the smallest glimmer of hope just ignited in my heart. And that is what started me on my journey, where you see me now as an actual minister, which my mother really struggled with, I will be honest with you. My friends at One Spirit, my interfaith seminary that I did, they used to call me the Revi, right? So this practice, this is really the heart of what Unity and New Thought. So we're called New Thought because we are the youngest kids on the block, right? Late 1800s, mid 1800s, the collision of science and spirituality. You have dinosaur bones being discovered. We now understand scientifically the world wasn't built in 6 days. How do we reconcile that with scripture? that is where New Thought arose as a way to reconcile this seeming paradox that was arising as science was making itself known. And so Unity doesn't understand Scripture as literal, we understand Scripture as metaphysical. And our founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, created a metaphysical Bible dictionary, like it's this tome where he went through and he gives metaphysical interpretations for everything that is in the Judeo-Christian scriptures. And how we hold Scripture is that Scripture is there as a roadmap for the revelation of our divine identity, for the truth of who we are here, of how we have been called to show up, and that it is continually evolving. So Unity is very, we say we're open at the top. We understand that consciousness is continually evolving, and that what our founders knew in the 1800s is not necessarily something that we are actually still adhering to now, but we are following those essential principles. So we do not believe that God is a being. We believe that God is beingness. We believe that we describe and understand the divine through principles: love, compassion, joy, beauty, harmony. And we understand that each of those is available to all of us at any moment. And so our main foundational practices are meditation. So we call it the silence. We understand that as the place of experiential, of that very, very imminent understanding of the divinity that we are. And then we have affirmative prayer. And affirmative prayer is how that divinity that I am, that I get to experience when I'm in meditation, how does that divinity then show up in time and in space? We are very practical teaching. We are about I often say to people, what will enable you to live a more loving, fulfilled, and joyful life? Take from our teaching what works and let go of what isn't working for you right now, and hold that higher understanding that we are all continuing to grow and to evolve and to step into something that is greater than ourselves. So within this practice, and if anybody's interested in more of our foundational things, I did write a book that Unity just printed like 3 months ago. I do have some copies here. It's called Discover Your Divinity, a modern approach to affirmative prayer. And Linda Martellowitz and I broke down this fabulous prayer process of transformation. If there are places that you're stuck in your life, if there are, those places where the patterns just keep coming back around, affirmative prayer is a really powerful way to be able to stand in some aspect of the divine and say, if I am love, what does that mean I can now do and be in the world? And how Unity understands the power of love, we call it a power, is that it is the harmonizer and the unifier, that it is the great harmonizer. So if I am love, then I can be harmonizing all of my relationships. I can be that place, that space of connection from a very real heart space in everyone who I am interacting with this day. So can you see how we're very much about how do you bring it into your life? How do you actually, we would say, how do you actually activate it? How do you demonstrate it? How do you manifest it in time and in space? And if you go on Amazon and you look at the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, you'll see some of the comments that people make. And we are considered to be heretics by a lot of people. Number one, because we don't take scripture literally. And number two, because we are so grounded in the awareness of the I am, and that we believe that we, right here, each one of you, is the divine. Right here, right now, that heaven is in us right now. And that we are the place where that gets to actually show up in time and in space. And so it is radically different than some other faith traditions, for sure. The only other thing I want to add, because I know I'm right at the end of my time, is, we were founded by a husband and wife, and, Unity has had female ministers since its inception in the 1880s. That piece has been, a part to be on the leading edge of consciousness, to be part of that space, that place where we get to grow and evolve. And I don't know, I look at the world today and my heart breaks again and again and again and again and again. Sort of an unending breaking. And yet, I really do believe that when we are willing to stand in that which we are, that we're so intimidated by. We're so intimidated by how powerful we actually are. That was my fear, I realized, when I first stepped into affirmative prayer. I was actually just afraid of how powerful my prayer was going to be. When we are willing to embrace that and align it with love, compassion, joy, I'm not talking about power over, I'm talking about the power that moves us forward. I truly do believe that that's how we create a world that works for everyone. And that is my vision, my mission for Marin, but also for the world. What would a world that truly works for everyone actually look like? And we have to be willing to step into something new, something that we perhaps have not been willing to embrace about ourselves. And so Unity is loving and gentle. We love you where you are. We have a blessing we do for the kids, which, you are the perfect expression of divine light. We love you exactly the way you are. Like right now, you are perfect. And that divinity within you is infinite. And there is so much more for you to be able to experience and become. Thank you. Peace and blessings, everyone.
Thank you so much, DeeAnn. Our next speaker is Jiryu Rutschman-Byler. He is a Soto Zen Buddhist priest and teacher in the lineage of Shinryu Suzuki Roshi, with Dharma transmission from Sojun Metal Weitzman. He lives and teaches at Green Gulch Farm Zen Center, where he is the abiding abbot. He is also mentor and preceptor to the Montaña de Silencio Sangha in Medellin, Colombia, and for many years served as a head teacher of the Buddha Dharma Sangha at San Quentin State Prison. Jiryu has trained in Zen temples in the U.S. and Japan since 1996. He also holds a master's degree in Asian Studies from UC Berkeley, where he worked under the mentorship of the group in Buddhist studies on Buddhist texts in classical Chinese and modern Japanese. His thesis research focused on Nishiari Bukusan and the development of Soto Zen in Japan during the Meiji period. He is the author of the book Two Shores of Zen, about his experiences in 2002 to 2004 as an American-trained monk practicing in Japanese Zen monasteries, and his writing has appeared in the Buddhist periodicals Buddha Dharma and Turning Wheel. Please welcome Jiryu.
Good morning. Unlike DeeAnn, I like the shield here. Thank you for being on the other side of this wall. It really is wonderful to be here today with all of you. Thank you, Scott, and everyone for the warm welcome and for the kind invitation. I am a fan of the Marin Interfaith Council. My attendance at events is inexcusably poor, but I'm rooting for MIC every day. So grateful that this exists through the work and the efforts of so many of you. Maybe I'll say a word by way of introducing myself about my own interfaith heritage, my own life looking back is a kind of tapestry of various faith traditions. My grandfathers on both sides were Mennonite pastors, Mennonite missionaries in Latin America, where I was born. When we moved to the U.S. when I was young, we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where my parents were part of the Friends meeting there. So I grew up in the Friends meeting in Albuquerque for many years there, living with a Quaker elder who was very influential for me and was always going off to get arrested for some good reason or other. My family then moved to Chicago, and I had the idea of joining my friend at the local South Side Catholic school, which was a further education and introduction to that deep ritual way. As a young adult, I also practiced Wicca, the neo-pagan practices, sadly without sufficient guidance. And eventually I landed in Zen practice, where I took up residential training, this wonderful opportunity. The San Francisco Zen Center are temples that offer this sort of unique way of residential Zen training. So I've been immersed in that world of Zen training since the age of 20, mostly with the San Francisco Zen Center, and now mostly here at Green Gulch Farm over towards Muir Beach. I hope you all stop by and walk the grounds now and then. So I'm really grateful for all of these strands in my own faith life and all of these strands of faith in Marin. And today I'm appreciating that the Marin Interfaith Council, this weaving together of our many ways, isn't just something that is how it is. It's not just something that happened because it's just there. It's happening, and it has happened because people are working really hard to keep weaving this tapestry. If we put it down, we would just go our separate ways. So feeling the real privilege of living in a place and a time where we feel we can share a meal and share our voices together, and wanting today to just acknowledge for myself and express gratitude for all of you who have kept those connections alive. So Scott suggested that I share some reflection on some aspect of my own journey that relates to my tradition and that also is alive for me in my life and practice. And I thought right away of a dynamic in Zen practice that's also very much part of my own life, dynamic or theme that I could talk about in many ways, but I think I'd like to call up there versus down here. Up there versus down here. I want to talk about this dynamic in a couple of ways. The first is in this actual body, the up here, up there, and down here of my sense of self, my sense of being, my sense of where I am, of who I am, as up there or down here. And secondly, in a broader sense of where I aspire to look for the divine, the sacred, the spiritual depth, absolute truth. Looking up there or down here. So first, just a few words about this. The way that this embodied shift is something I practice and try to tend to every day whenever, by some grace, I remember to do so, which is to consciously center myself, my sense of being, in my body. I thought if I was to offer a prayer for us to join in this morning, it would be this. It would be this embodied prayer of coming into our body, coming into my belly. So if you'd like to join me, breathing out, I can feel this sense of being drop down into your lower belly. That might sound strange to you, or you might know just what I mean. I think of if someone says, "Who are you?" or "Where are you?" Where would you point? I'm here. Or I'm here in the belly. This sense of that where I am, who I am, my being is coming from this lower belly. So breathing all the way out, the breath emerges from the bottom of my belly. And sometimes if I need a little help, I keep exhaling past the end of that exhalation. So breathing all the way out from my low belly and then extending the breath a little farther. Feeling that energy in my low belly. And then opening that low belly and receiving the breath flooding in to that same depth. So each time I let the breath drop into my belly, I feel that I'm more and more becoming identified with my belly, that that's where I am, that that's who I am down here. That that's my real home. Thank you for joining in that breath. I see and feel that ground. It could well be that not everybody needs to do this practice. I've been told that as a Gemini, it makes sense that I'm in my head all the time and have some special need for this practice of coming into my belly. So easy for me to get lost in my head and completely pulled around by the nonsense that is 95% of what's happening in my mind on any given day. I say nonsense because much of it really is trivial, but also some of it is terrible and confusing and despair inspiring. Fear and greed and hatred and confusion. When I give myself to my head, this fear and greed and confusion and hatred can become, as we all know, rather debilitating. But coming into my belly, there's a kind of space a kind of freedom, a kind of being that's wider than whatever I'm thinking or feeling, without rejecting anything. So in Zen, this belly center we talk of as the seat of our embodied intuitive wisdom. So the head is analyzing and naming and separating and comparing things. That's the main thing that our head does. You may have noticed we're naming things. And fundamentally, in our Buddhist teaching at least, the way things are actually inconceivably bound up in each other. We can't actually be pulling things apart and comparing them to each other. Fundamentally, to name something and compare it to something else is already a kind of subtle violence to reality, to this unified, single moment of being. So there's something always a little bit off about the mind. So it can do its thing, thank you, mind. But for something important like religious practice or ethical conduct, wisdom and compassion, I need a grown-up, the grown-up of the belly, to actually be entrusted with this great responsibility. You know, figuring out my daily calendar, go for it, head. But, you know, awakening together with everyone, manifesting wisdom and compassion in this suffering world, that is calling for something deeper and wider and more solid down here. So this belly center is not dividing in the way that the head is dividing. It's connected and harmonized and responsive to what actually is here. That's one of our principles of this embodied practice. Our San Francisco Zen Center founder, the late Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, had a great way to express this in this strangely corporate metaphor. He said, the belly is the main office and the head is the branch office. I love this. The branch office it's great. I'm so glad, you know, the branch office is off and rolling. And it's good to get a memo now and then. But I report to the main office, this down here belly center. So there's a second aspect I wanted to raise of this up there versus down here that's more generally about my everyday effort to connect with the divine, to engage with the boundless, bright, inseparable being that we are. And this deep habit of looking up for that. So when I first opened to spirituality and religion, maybe many of you can relate to this feeling of vastness, you know, sitting by the ocean and just feeling that immensity and wanting to just become that. And I think in some sense intuiting that I kind of was, but still wanting to grow into that, to stretch into that, to be swallowed up into that vastness. And so in my clumsy personal practice, I would try to stretch, you know, be oceanic, be vast, be boundless, be bright, be one. To try to kind of soar into this vast realm where all the good stuff is, all the angels and the gods and everything good up there. Get me out of here, get me there to that vastness. And there's a lot of great stuff up there, as you all know. It's a great place, you know, like maybe when it's time we'll know for sure. But it seems like there's a lot up there. It is a good way to always be seeking up, to be seeking that vastness, deep bow to that path of up. But for me, I have not been and am not yet to this day enough here to be stretching up for anything. As I was stretching, not here enough, I became thinner and thinner down here. That was nice in a way, you know, to not be so bothered by all you suffering beings. So good, good riddance. I'm on my way to the vastness of heaven. And there's less and less of me to be bothered by my own suffering and my own hatred and my own greed and my own confusion and my own despair. So refuge above. Gradually, so little was left of me on this earth, in this body, that even a little breeze could have knocked me over. And of course, there were some big gusts that dispatched me very efficiently. So fortunately, because of some, we would say, old karmic roots, as my head hit the ground, blown over by these gusts, this kind of shell of a human being, blown over, my head hit the ground, and from there unfolded my Zen practice. And when I first encountered Zen, I felt in every dimension of the practice, from the way that the practice was held, to the teachers and community I met, even to the architecture, that everything was pointing to that same vastness, that same boundless, bright being, but it was right here in the dirt. It was in the broom. Sweep the vastness, in these hands, in the ground. And there was no damage to the vastness, to the boundlessness. It was not damaged by being just right here in the broom, in the teacup. There's a famous old statement in Zen. It goes something like, just like the spiritual adepts of other ways, we also have cultivated a supernatural power. Ours is chopping wood and carrying water. That's our supernatural power. Watch this. A human being living an ordinary life. Inconceivably vast. So I say this as an active, present, alive part of my practice, because all the time I'm looking past what is actually here today, right now, in front of me, because I want something vast and something good and something bright. And I feel like, I don't know, I have these vows. I'm owed some boundlessness. And this isn't it. So let me reach around, let me reach over, moment after moment, hitting this tendency, this deep-rooted habit to be reaching around for that oneness, for that vastness. And we have a practice that I'll share in my closing time of enacting by how we relate, as I shared, with our breath, with our body, also with the objects around us. And maybe I'll invite this practice we call menmitsu no kafu, or this kind of diligent care of everything that is around us, as a kind of enactment or ceremony or expression of the boundlessness of each thing. So we say, pick up the paper coffee cup with both hands and feel that whole being connecting with what's here. Coffee cups are easy, people are a little harder, but the same spirit applies. This tender care for who is actually right here, that is the place of depth, of spiritual truth, of boundless, bright oneness. So being down here together, where the world really needs us to be while we're here. Not settling for that as a kind of compromise with the vastness, but actually embracing that as the exact place where that boundlessness is. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Jiryu. So we conclude today with two speakers, friends of mine, whom I know through the Chaplaincy Institute. When the three of us met for lunch a few months ago, I asked if either would be willing to be a speaker at this year's prayer breakfast, and they both said yes, and that they'd both like to do it together. So that's what we're about to do. Reverend Jess Shine earned degrees in theology and divinity, but says, I still haven't figured out how to walk on water. In 2021, they completed the privilege of call process while serving at the national setting of the United Church of Christ. Jess was ordained to ministry by the Seventh-day Adventist Church and continued offering spiritual care as a clergy member of the Chi Interfaith community. With over 2 decades of experience pastoring church communities, police officers, hospice patients and staff, teenagers, and as a community minister of the Chaplaincy Institute, Jess brings a passion for people and a skill for communicating in transformative ways. They have written for progressivechristianity.org and progressingspirit.org, and they serve as Chi Seminary guest faculty. Jess is a descendant of Mexican, Indian, and Northwestern European immigrants. Their spirituality began in childhood and continues through expansive relationships, reading, music, wine, travel, theological conversations, sports, and food. Jeff celebrates life with their wife Deshna, an ordained interfaith chaplain, bonus daughter Kyla, and their 4-legged friends. Reverend Lauren Van Ham is an ordained interfaith minister. Spiritual growth, art, and earth's teachings infuse her focus in eco-ministry and sacred activism. For 9 years, she served as a hospital chaplain, then served with a consulting firm where she custom designed employee engagement programs for companies committed to sustainability and culture change. For more than a decade, Lauren was dean at the Chaplaincy Institute, a spiritual director, guest faculty for several schools, and guest writer for Progressing Spirit. Lauren is co-founder of Project Adapt, an approach to being with societal disruption and ecological collapse by embracing reverence. Currently, Lauren serves as Earth Restoration Coordinator for the United Religions Initiative, a global grassroots interfaith organization. She holds degrees from Carnegie Mellon University and Naropa University. Please welcome Jess and Lauren.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Those were the words that we chanted as we walked with our 16-year-old at the time through the streets of Southeast Portland. Our daughter Kyla and her 2 best friends had spent many nights that summer with us at demonstrations. And as a parent who's queer and of mixed ethnicity, it felt important for my daughter, who is white passing, to be in spaces and places that are being led by black and brown young people and queer people, particularly when we lived in the city that had just been voted the most white in the United States. It felt important as a parent for us to see her and to have imprinted on her mind the reality of peaceful demonstrations led by people her age and older. And so that night, as we walked from Laurelhurst Park in Southeast Portland to the Southeast Precinct with thousands of our siblings and neighbors, we chanted those words together. We came finally to the precinct, and we were greeted by a wall of officers in full riot gear. We came with no weapons but our love. And as we approached, I looked over the heads of those in front of me and saw the first rows meeting the officers at the sidewalk, some of whom had their shields up, and the energy was magnetic. I began to see the people in the front rows of the demonstration talking with the officers and the officers talking back. And I heard, as I quietly listened, I heard someone say, "Put down your guns and join us." After a few moments of standing in silence waiting for our leaders, I noticed the first 2 rows of people kneel. And one by one, the rest of us began to kneel. Because there are more of us than there are bullets. And once you run out of bullets, physical or verbal, what then? Once you run out of bombs, what then if we can't talk with each other? Eventually, we got back up and continued walking around the precinct. And I was watching our daughter, and as I watched her and her friends, I turned and noticed that on the top corner of the building were more officers. And in that moment, I saw something I'll never forget. Our 16-year-old daughter saw the officer on the corner of the precinct rooftop. Without any thought for herself, without any fear, she raised a peace sign. And I don't know how many people saw it in that crowd of several thousand, but I saw the officer flash a peace sign back at her. We meet at the intersections of our isms. We meet at the intersections of our racism, our ageism, our sexism, our Islamophobia, our homophobia, our transphobia, our anti-Semitism, some of us perpetrating and others suffering from. We meet there, and what will you do? Kyla raised her hand with no thought of fear, only the idea that I see you. I see you. I see you behind your armor. I see you behind your weapons. I see you. I see you behind your fears of being wrong or doing the wrong thing. You're going to do the wrong thing. I see you in your anguish over wanting to leave the world better. I see you in your disrupted peace because so much of what you have fought for has been rolled back. I see you. I see you in your anguish because of the repeated racist behavior that you experience. Despite school systems and county systems that do not yet know they can interrupt racism. I see you in your feelings of embarrassment because you haven't yet countered racism in your own homes and in your heart like you thought you had. I still see you. Not as your ism, but as a human. Not as your label, but as a sibling. I see you. I invite you to put your hands over your heart. Just for a moment, to close your eyes until you notice your heartbeat. I see you. I see your heart. Do you feel it? Now, if you can, offer your hand to a neighbor. Feel for their heartbeat as you offer yours. Just wait and be still. Can you feel their heartbeat too? Do you feel yours? What will you do at this intersection? What will you do at this intersection? Because a demonstration is a moment. Will you join the call for peace? Radical peace that doesn't need enforcement by violence. Radical peace that is rooted in mutuality. I see you. I see your hunger for peace. There's enough outrage to go around, and not enough acknowledgement that you hold the heartbeat of another human. Too many pundits giving us one-liners to repeat. Not enough connecting. The planet is suffering. Our children are suffering. Your grandchildren are suffering. You and I are suffering. And yet I see you. I see your heart. I see your desire for love and safety like my own. Sarah Bessey writes, remembering how to love the world while still in the midst of our own evolution is complicated. We don't need a resolute beam of positive thinking and encouraging chirps about silver linings. Those sentiments, a cotton candy theology of survival, melted long ago. That would have been an appropriate time for an amen. Maybe you didn't know that because your own cotton candy theology is melting before your eyes and you are still grasping to it. I see you. I see you. She goes on, but what would it be like to love the world, not in general, but in particular? Pay attention, be mindful of loving this particular world and your particular people and your particular neighborhood and your particular self. Love is not cautious, but extravagant and specific. Look out at your intersections. Look out at your intersections. We meet in the intersections. I see you. I see you. I see you.
I was raised Christian. I love Jesus. My Theravadan practice grounds me, and earth is my main spiritual teacher. I call what I do eco-chaplaincy. In addition to celebrating what makes each tradition its own, what feels important to me at an interfaith gathering is honoring the themes that feel universally true and important. So a first truth. Eco, from the Greek word oikos, means home. So let's ground in the universal practice that is about each of us having a home by arriving in this moment. Interestingly enough, in the English word home rhymes with the primordial sound om. So if you'd like to chant with me, feel free. I'm going to sing this 3 times. H-O-M-E, home. H-O-M-E. home. Home, home. Another theme of importance. There are two realities that seem to have been with us humans for our entire existence, and I'm going to summarize them briefly and extend us with an invitation. The religion of empire is a kingdom. It's ruled through the lens of individualism, and it's fueled by the fear of scarcity. The religion of creation is a kingdom, ruled through the lens of relatedness and fueled by the generosity that is love. And in every sacred text across our faith traditions, these two themes are present. In all kinds of ways, the religion of creation models generosity through its deep honoring of relationships. And this incredible design, this generosity, in case it doesn't feel obvious, this loving act of relatedness is God, mystery, source, creator. In the religion of empire, this honor of relatedness goes missing. Convinced that we are on our own, relating gets replaced with taking. The religion of empire sets us above nature's rhythms, above creation's generosity, suggesting that we can extract however much we want, whenever we want it, and when we're done with it, we simply ditch it and dump it. And because the religion of empire is fueled by the fear that there won't be enough, I wonder why, the kingdom gets established, colonizing its way through soil and water and forests and, yes, people. With little regard for life, the religion of empire also has no regard for labor. Enslavement, exploitation, and injustice bleeds everywhere. And in its delusional frenzy to maintain control, the king becomes God, or so the empire believes. There's this other eco word in English, economy. So eco means home and nomi means management. Economy is about the managing or organizing of relationships in our home. Isn't it interesting that the definition of economy is not about size or money or profit? In the home that is your backyard, or the Marin headlands, or the entire Pacific Ocean, it is easy to understand that all relationships matter. The more biodiversity, the more resilient the home. The more resilient the home, the stronger the economy. In the religion of empire, the economy is merely a machine for amassing wealth and power for the king and others at the top. So the privileges that most of us have in the US, like warm water, a smartphone in our pocket, and myriad forms of transportation to get from one place to another, became possible through the acts of taking, enslaving, ditching, and dumping. In this empire economy, life and labor are not sacred. It's a woefully short-sighted predicament, and for some time now, there has been this story that suggests we can fix our crisis with technology, geoengineering, and carbon counting. But friends, if we organize our planet home focusing on carbon emissions without regard for the ones living near the future solar farm or on the coast that is going to be mined for its sand, then the religion of empire has won again, perpetuating an unequal distribution of suffering. Very much like the Hebrew people looking for ways out of Egypt, or Jesus overturning tables in the temple, the religion of creation, this practice of kinship, is urging us to redefine our economy by getting honest about the ways we relate with one another and all of creation. Yes, we want clean, renewable energy. We want healthy watersheds, food security, and ways of trading across our bioregions. We also want caring, equitable cooperation that recognizes the preciousness of life, the marvel of interdependence, the sacredness of all beings, including the rights of land and water and forests, all creatures. Can we do this while upholding an empire version of an economy that was never designed for this? Creation and Creator is telling us we cannot. It's going to be a profound transition to move from kingdom to kingdom. Scientists foretell that many of us will not survive. On nearly every continent, in pockets of the world, we have mentors, indigenous people and other groups too, who are helping us see a series of smaller transitions that can help us move toward a regenerative economy. Kingdom alert. In every example, it's a community effort, an interfaith invitation. So in one of her poems, St. Mary Oliver instructs, leave room in your heart for the unimaginable. The Hebrew people could not initially imagine dew and manna providing sustenance because they had forgotten their place within the family of creation. They labored together in their tents, communicating with one another and Moses. It was a communal act to listen for God, to leave the ways of empire and relearn the generosity of love that comes through honorable relationship. If they had remained in Egypt, they would have continued to talk about the problem, or they would have died as slaves. But by turning to one another and listening for the divine guidance present in the creation around them, the Hebrews began to navigate the problem. It was messy, and there was kinship. It was confusing, and there was guidance. So the invitation from the religion of creation is to behave as the kin we already are and always have been. Our kin have 2 legs, 4 legs, stoma, lichen. We are many races, we are many species. Our mating practices are ornate and differentiated. We get to learn from and relate with all of it. So I am inviting us to take up our right-sized role in the family of creation. Let's turn away from the falseness that is individualism. Let's embrace the messiness of living and labor together, knowing that we cannot fall from the generosity that is love. H-O-M-E, home.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Lauren. Paul seems to have a news flash for us that the United Methodist Church has reversed the ban on gay clergy. Thank you, reporter Mallory. All right, so thank you to our speakers again. Thank you for coming today. Again, if you are part of our newsletter or if you'd like to make an additional donation, QR code is on the page on your table and the sign-up sheet. Join us for first, second, or third Wednesdays. And just a final word from our friend Rumi, the Sufi poet. And a final gratitude also. Thank you, DeeAnn. Thank you, Jiryu. Thank you, Jess and Lauren. So this is what Rumi said many centuries ago. A learned man once said, for the sake of saying something, there's a tree in India. If you eat the fruit of that tree, you'll never grow old and never die. Stories about the tree were passed around. And finally, a ruler sent his envoy to India to look for it. People laughed at the man. They slapped him on the back and called out, "Sir, I know where your tree is. It's far out in the jungle, and you'll need a ladder." He kept traveling, following such directions, and feeling foolish for many years. He was about to return home and give up his search when he met a wise man. "Great teacher, show me some kindness in this search for the tree." "My son, there is not an actual tree, though it's been called that. Sometimes it's called a sun, sometimes an ocean, or a cloud. These words point to the wisdom that comes through a true human being, which may have many effects, the least of which is eternal life. In the same way, one person can be a father to you and a son to someone else, uncle to another and nephew to yet another. So what you are looking for has many names and one existence. Don't just search for one of the names. Move beyond any attachment to names." Rumi concludes with these words. Every war and every conflict between human beings has happened because of some disagreement about names. It's such an unnecessary foolishness because just beyond the arguing, there's a long table of companionship set and waiting for us to sit down. Thank you for sitting down today at this table of companionship together. Let's keep it growing and growing. Much love and gratitude to all of you.